Today, on a special bonus episode of the Locked On Suns podcast, Mike Budenholzer out. We expected it, but that doesn't mean we know what's coming next. We'll react to the move, how we got here, lessons to be learned, and our early thoughts on what to watch for the rest of the week. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Tuesday. Maybe you're getting it right. First thing Monday. Who am I kidding? Don't forget, Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. A lot to get into. We'll break down all of the news surrounding Coach Bud's dismissal, which came even sooner than I think Ben and I would have expected. The first coach fired Monday on the NBA's Black Monday, and then a little bit of a, hey, what comes next? We'll get another episode for you in the can to get you started with your Tuesday. This one's just extra instant reaction. Joining me, as always, from the wonderful West Valley to do that is my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling on this Monday morning, Ben Garcia?
9:02 a.m. is about what I expected. Working in AM sports radio, just bright and early in the morning last year, it was almost frustrating because things wouldn't come down the pipeline until like 9:50. So to all the AM or to all the sports radio hosts this morning, they were able to just get a free hour of content that they could just talk about. So that was about what I expected. I thought it was actually a little earlier than potentially what I thought, but I'm happy to see that this is the outcome. Moving swiftly.
I think the timing was just a matter of time, is how I would put it, with this Coach Bud firing. 36-46, Ben, and a disappointing season. Fired at 1 year into a 5-year contract that is worth, as far as we know, 8 figures a year. And so not exactly a easy decision to stomach, but I think you and I both got to the point throughout the course of the season where, setting aside the money and the optics of it, which we'll definitely, spend some time on, I'm sure, throughout the week and today as well, it just became the right decision. You're seeing tweets from Dwayne Rankin that the loss to the Pelicans on February 27th, which was the game where Zion just went bonkers, triple-double. Somebody named Carlo Matkovic went off. I don't know who that is still, and I watched him do it at home. Too many of those types of stinkers added up. But to me, I don't know about you. So we talked about the timing of like the news coming out. The timing of when this really fell apart, I think, is interesting because, okay, that Pelicans game, sure. I almost look at it as that the real inflection point was the reports around that meeting between Bud and Book, where Bud reportedly told or asked Book to kind of tone down his seizing of the locker room and his kind of, taking a voice. And they handled that okay. Like, they talked through that whole thing and, got the noise to go away around those reports, Ben. But it felt like around that time where, at least from my standpoint, what Bud was saying publicly, it just kind of it petered out into nothing, and it just felt like he kind of rolled over after that.
Oh yeah, rolled over is the exact right way to put it, Brendon. We had talked about, like, after that little 3-game winning streak that they had, you asked me the question, and for some reason it stuck in my brain of like, has Bud done enough to save his job? And I think what I said to you was like, I don't know, TBD. He never, when the train got off the tracks, tried to get it back on. In the worst of everything for this Suns season, which really feels like it's came in the last couple of weeks, Mike Budenholzer did nothing to stop himself from getting ran over by that proverbial train. In fact, it almost feel like he welcomed it. It almost feel like the head coach the hometown coach of the Phoenix Suns. This is what I'm going to do. This whole parade that we kind of had at the beginning to have him here. It was almost like, all right, I got my $10 million a year. I'm ready to leave and be like, and just go vacation on a beach for the rest of my life. Because like, I don't think Bud gets another stop anywhere. I think this was it. And I think he came to the conclusion himself, like he was done. So you saying he hasn't done anything to help change that, 150%, man. And I think everyone felt that.
Because I did this segment on one of the solo shows like maybe a month ago now that I did where I said, because I had just been like, I think we're all driven crazy by Bud's public persona throughout the whole season of just how little he would say and everything. Because like last year, at least there were times where Vogel he did try the hard, you know what act. Like he would kind of, and that was honestly one of the things that came out when he got fired was that he went so far in the other direction that sometimes it sounded like the team maybe didn't take that seriously, but at least he tried something. And I had said with Bud, like, if he gets fired, and at that point I think we all knew it was probably headed toward that he would get fired, we felt like, I was like, we will look back on him not saying more as one of the reasons why, right? Like I'm not here to tell somebody how to speak publicly or what to say in a press conference, but what I can say is when he gets fired, we're all going to be saying, why did he just like let it happen, basically? And so it's very puzzling. But on the court, I do think that's probably the part that confuses me more. It confuses me more because off the court, the kind of Greg Popovich, my way or the highway kind of coach, I think that there's a little bit of a trend away from those guys in the NBA. I also think that it's a lot easier for that style to work when you are winning and very good and have championships versus when you're a first-year head coach in a team that doesn't fit. But on the court, we thought that was going to be the part of this that worked best, right? We were talking about how, all closing the 3-point gap and getting the big three to play off of each other better and playing faster and even, a defensive scheme that might, like Vogel's did, bring the best out of a guy like Yusuf Nurkic. And none of that happened. I mean, nothing. None of the strides you would have wanted to see this team make as a basketball team ever came to fruition.
It is really surprising me that we never saw it either, man. I would be curious to think, because now that I've had an hour or so to kind of marinate, or 2 hours at this point, to kind of marinate and think about what went wrong, because we're bringing up he didn't even try to save his job, it almost makes me think, like, why didn't he do that? Is it because Matt Ishbia is really hard to work with? Is it because Josh Barlstein, which, news is coming down that maybe he's doing more than we were led on to believe, or maybe he didn't like working with James Jones? Like, it's not just a one-way street, right? It's also about, like, are the Suns just, not are they? They clearly are, but are the Suns just that much more dysfunctional than we thought they would be? And because it does shock me that this was I remember seeing Bud on I don't think I was at that press conference, but I remember watching the videos. He looked really excited to be there, man. Towards the end of it, I make the joke that every picture we've seen from Bud from his starting press conference to now, it looks like he's aged 100 years. Like, he always looks unhappy. He never even looks just like at a stalemate, like just normal.
Yeah, but doesn't that let him off the hook too much to say that the team's just dysfunctional and it like broke him?
No, I think it's a two-way street, man. I think the Suns are a terrible organization. Like, they're not stable right now, and they're anything but functional. So I do think this is a 70% Budenholzer road, but 30% of it does have to lean on the fact the Suns just seem very miserable to work with at this point.
I think that's fair. Part of me also, if you're talking about why, I think part of me wonders, like, did he just recognize, kind of like I think the players did, that this just wasn't going to work? And maybe he just quickly understood, hey, this isn't really the job that I necessarily thought that I signed up for. Maybe he looked at it and said, hey, Vogel did fine. I'm going to improve it in these few ways, and we can take ourselves from 49 to, a top 4 seed type thing. And, I have more of playoff experience as a coach and different sort of things like that. Like I'm here to kind of elevate this thing. And then maybe like training camp, the first month of the season comes around, the KD injury, and he's like, man, I mean, maybe he just kind of had the same realization that we all did, and he just didn't think there was anything to be done. Now, okay, well, that's your job, dude. So I can't exactly like it's kind of. So I think you're what you're saying, that it's both sides of this obviously is true, which gets us to, I think, the bigger picture, because the Suns are now going to be hiring a head coach for the third straight off season, and it'll be their fourth coach in 4 seasons. Forget the money. How do you wrap your arms around that? Who is wrapping their arms around that? And what does it tell us about the place that the organization is in? We'll get to all that next. First, today's show is brought to you by Hungry Root. Spring is here and life is busier than ever. Between work and family and everything in between, a lot of us lose that time for grocery shopping, meal prep, all that stuff that you got to really dedicate yourself to. But that's why Hungry Root comes in clutch. It makes eating healthy, delicious meals simple and stress-free. Hungry Root is like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist wrapped into one. They take care of grocery shopping, list making, and meal planning, offering personalized recommendations based on your tastes and health goals. We all love Hungry Root here on the Locked On Podcast Network, but that's because it tailors not just to your health goals or, what type of things you have at your local store or whatever. It's also what you like. It gets smarter over time. It learns you. And it's also customized to, hey, I really like chicken versus beef, or I really love, Mexican style food versus, Mediterranean or whatever else, or burgers. Like, I just want Mexican more. And it says, okay. And it makes you that more on your list. So that is the cherry on top of this awesome product. Take advantage of this exclusive deal by going to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Get 40% off your first box plus a free item in each box for the rest of your life. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA for 40% off and a lifetime free item in each pack. All right, keeping the show rolling here as we talk about the dismissal of Mike Budenholzer after just 1 season here in the Valley. So, Ben, I put out this tweet, and we'll get into candidates. Like I said, we have an episode for Tuesday that we'll have for you that'll be the latest on who the Suns are looking at and the front office changes and all that, but we're keeping it on the coaching for right now. But I had put this out basically saying, not only can you look at the Suns and just be like apoplectic about the fact that they are even in this position, that they keep not only firing coaches, but then screwing up who they hire. But it's also a little bit of an own goal, in my opinion, because in 2023, the writing was on the wall that Kevin Young was the guy Book wanted, right? He was the dude who worked Book out pregame, kind of his personal. Every coach has a couple of guys that they're responsible for. Sometimes it's position groups with star players. It can kind of just be whoever. It's Bruce Frazier in Golden State for Steph, as we all know, right? And then in 2024, there were the early reports when they were going to fire Vogel that Chauncey Billups was the guy that the players wanted, Book and KD. But, let's just stick with the Book part, Kevin Young and then Chauncey. One, I'll just say, I think that we should tuck that away for what this upcoming search is going to be. But just looking backward at the fact that each time there's also been a disagreement about who to go with, I think that it really speaks to what you said in that last segment, which is just that I don't know, it's hard to feel like this is going to go well. It's hard to feel confident. Okay, you fired Bud, you had to fire Bud, but why should anyone in the Valley feel like the next thing's going to work right now?
It almost feels like Devin Booker. I know this is kind of crazy, but also it's not, because it's basketball. Football, probably a little bit differently. Baseball, probably. But I want you to continue elaborating on this point, because I saw your tweet about this and I thought it was really insightful. The first part being he wanted Kevin Young. They went Frank Vogel. That he wanted Chauncey Billups. He went Mike Budenholzer. Should Devin Booker have a much stronger say in the next head coach? And I'll go even further. Should that guy just be in the room helping interview this guy? Like, how much of a role should Devin Booker play in this? If you don't want to lose him, that's a good way not to lose a player too.
Yeah, again, like sticking away from the who and all that for right now, I think that to me, Book should be involved. I think that everything about this offseason should be centered around Book. Now, Giannis wanted Adrian Griffin. Ask Bucks fans how that went, right? Like it can't always. And honestly, Portland, Damian Lillard is the reason Chauncey has that job. I mean, he's outlasted Dame, but that one was criticized. Chauncey had no coaching experience. He was an assistant for, I believe, 1, maybe 2 seasons, had never been a head coach. Had some baggage in terms of his past that people were confused by and everything else. And Dame was able to get that, and it didn't go great. Dame ended up leaving because they couldn't turn things around. And, now Chauncey's kind of made his bones as more of a developmental coach in Portland. But, it can go either way. But I think it just speaks to the fact that we're even talking about a player having such a disagreement with the front office in the first place. That's a problem. Being so far apart, that to me is not great. And now the fact that the winning vote, the voice that is won out has gotten it wrong multiple times, that just speaks to the broader issue here of and I know we're in agreement on this, and I know it was something we were texting about right when this happened. I don't trust if it's Matt Ishbia just picking his guy again that this is going to work out. I don't have a magic solution for what else should go on here, but if it's just some dude and we think Book might have wanted someone else again, and there's another candidate who picks another, there's a whole bunch of ways that this search could go, and I just don't. There's not one that I really feel great about. It is. The Suns are in a really bad place because of how many times they've now screwed this up.
Well, and, forget the names that obviously we'll get to later. We really only have one name so far that everyone has heard of, and, there'll be more that come down the pipeline later. So, I don't even care about the names. Devin Booker, it's almost similar to, if for some people that are Cardinals fans, with Kyler Murray. He had mentioned for years, he wanted this player in the draft, that player in the draft, this player in the draft, the Cardinals continue to go away from that, and they keep on doing it wrong. And it's almost like maybe Kyler Murray should just draft the team. And that's kind of the point I'm getting to is maybe Devin Booker should just be leading the charge of head coaches, because Chauncey Billups, let's forget the Devin Booker, they didn't pick his guy. Let's see what happened after. Well, BYU just got the number 1 recruit and actually looked pretty interesting in basketball this year. And it's BYU. It's not like they're this perennial powerhouse basketball team. Run. Yeah, exactly. And next year they got the number 1 guy. And then and then who they want last year? Chauncey Billups. Well, he just got a contract extension and improved it for 14 plus, or with 14 wins from the year prior. So it's very similar to maybe Kyler Murray should just draft the team. Well, maybe Devin Booker should just pick the head coach. Obviously a little tongue in cheek, but it's clear when it comes to basketball operations, if I did have to choose between Ishbia or Booker picking the head coach, it probably needs to be a little bit of both. But if I had to just pick one, I'd pick Devin Booker to get the coach.
Well, especially when you look at the fact that the reporting right now at The Athletic is that 1A of the friction, the bad relationships, which, Gambo is all over Twitter saying Bud basically had no good relationships. But The Athletic report specifically said that those problems started with Book, and not just when it comes to the meeting that I mentioned a minute ago. So if you're hiring a coach who doesn't jive with your best, your cornerstone, your best young core piece, KD obviously, has had the best season the past 2 years. But if Book doesn't get along with those guys, that's the hugest problem, right? Because some of the people you talk about, whether that's Pop or these dudes who have had longevity, Steve Kerr, what do they all say? The relationship and the trust and the mutual respect that they earned from their best player. When Pop I'll never forget, Tim Duncan goes into the Ring of Honor. I love Ring of Honor and Hall of Fame stuff. I always watch the speeches and whatever. what Duncan said, or what Pop said at Duncan's thing, which is like the only time we've really gotten to like kind of have that peek behind the curtain because the Spurs are so quiet. Pop has always said, Duncan, let me coach him. That's why all of this worked. 20-year dynasty, because the best player allowed me to do my job and set the precedent for everybody else that's how this was going to go. I was worthy of their trust and respect, and that, once that was aligned, same with Kerr and Curry, then the rest was kind of, a foundation had been laid. If you don't have that, the rest of it doesn't matter. So I think it's absolutely fine and fair, even though guys get it wrong. You're always going to, I think, be closer to making the right decision if you say, all right, Giannis, you want Adrian Griffin? Cool. All right, Dame, you want Chauncey? Sounds good. Rather than, I work at a mortgage company, I actually know the best coach. You know what I mean? Like, you're always going to be closer to getting it right if you go with what the player wants than you assuming you know better. So I don't it is tongue in cheek. Of course, they're not literally going to let Book just run the search. Nobody would say that, but like, I think that would have.
He can anchor it.
Would Kevin Young still be the coach right now if they had hired him? I mean, you never know. It's impossible to say, but like, I at least would have felt better about that than like a shot in the dark with Vogel.
Well, all you can do is look at what has happened with the picks that Booker probably wanted. Kevin Young, BYU looks to be on the up and up in basketball, competitive tournament run, have the number 1 recruit next year. And then as well with Chauncey Billups, you and I were both talking about, well, is he going to get let go? That was one guy that Gambo was alluding to. He just got a contract extension. And also, as much as I've had some issues with Devin Booker this year, whatever, regarding leadership, regarding play on the court, like whatever, I don't think, like Kevin Durant, he's a difficult dude to get along with. It's almost like, it's like with you and I, right? Like if people don't get along with you, Brendon, I just assume the other person is the problem. Whereas if people don't get along with me, you know me well enough where people are like, yeah, that guy can be a little hard-headed sometimes. It's Booker. He's a really easygoing guy that I feel like it should be almost second nature to get along with him. So when I see the issues and Booker really swallowing his pride, which I think is very commendable now that Bud is gone and all this is coming out, that is a huge issue for Bud, that he can't just get along with players, especially your star player. It's like, dude, it's like at work, dude, get along with your boss.
Like, and even Monty, like we should have even just given that example from day one. He said before the press conference had even happened, I believe, if I transport myself back to when Monty got hired, I think he had already gone to dinner with Book by the time he talked to us. And he said he laid out that Monty had worked with Brandon Roy, and he brought that up as a comp of like, I worked with Brandon Roy to develop him. I think there's ways we can bring different things out of you that kind of remind me of him. And, I want to be here for the long run, because obviously Book was in a very similar situation back then where he had been through all these different coaches. And, what do we all remember from the bubble when they win the 8th game in a row and they put themselves in position to make a shock postseason berth? What's the speech that went viral? It's Monty locking eyes with Book and saying, you've been through so much. You're a rock. Thank you for being here, right? Like, it has to be that. There's no way around it. All right.
That's a good one.
Let's get to a little bit of what might come next, because there was a notable name not in the news today, and there was a notable name that did pop up that is in the mix here that I think we should get to next. First, today's show is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about it. When was the last time you had a service emergency? If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? No, you did not. You moved on to the next thing, or you just panicked and maybe walked over to something else. That's why you need Open Phone to receive those calls when your business needs them in a timely fashion. And Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications all through an app on your phone or computer. I actually have a perfect story for this. My little sister is going to NAU right now. She is working in the admissions office, and they are having her work on a hiring process for an enrollment counselor. And they're having her call these candidates who are strangers to her, and they don't give her a phone from the university. They want her to call on her cell phone. She doesn't feel comfortable with that, so she's *6-7ing her freaking phone number, but then the people can't call her back because they don't actually know what phone number she's using and all this stuff because NAU didn't set up a phone system. That's about as obvious a mistake as you could possibly have, but OpenPhone helps you fix it. So get 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com with the promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LOCKEDONNBA. And if you're switching from another service, OpenPhone will even port that existing number over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, final thoughts on this instant reaction episode of Locked On Suns as Mike Budenholzer is out after one season. 136-46 abomination of a season. So, Ben, we'll have plenty, as I keep teasing on our next episode, of what comes next for all of this. But first thoughts here, I think, are a couple of things that we saw. One, I'll just let you react to whichever one you want to pick up the ball on here. So, Shams Charania reporting that the Suns are expected to have a wide-ranging coaching search, right? So we haven't heard, here are the 5 guys that the Suns are expected to pursue, or they already are having their eyes on so-and-so. Like, none of that has come out. It seems like they just were cleaning house, and they'll start from scratch here. But then also on the athletic side, some potential for a general manager. Ishbia is widely expected to consider new candidates there. And it remains unclear if CEO Josh Bartelstein's role will change. So I guess my thing here is kind of similar to what we did on Sunday evening's episode where we were like, what comes next? What's going to be the next headline? I was a little surprised that they would fire the coach and not already have a decision on those other 2 guys. That's confusing to me, but I think that this stuff's going to happen soon. What do you think we're going to see as the next couple dominoes here for the Suns? Like, what should fans kind of have their eye on? What are you looking at?
One giant eye roll, just really quickly, that you didn't. This feels like they're feeling out who they can keep around. Like, for some reason, it feels like they're still trying to feel out if they can keep James Jones, maybe because he might just be a puppet that is being used for other reasons, like just a yes man that will do whatever they say just to keep his job. So, like, it's almost like he's putting this out there, trying to see what people's reaction to be with those guys sticking around. The Josh Bartelstein stuff that has came out, that just screams it's all from Kevin Durant's camp, that Josh Bartelstein's starting to get some of the feet to the fire, if you will.
Wait, what makes you say that?
Well, this is so stupid. This is so stupid. Why I think it is Kevin Durant's camp. All the people that claim to be close to Kevin Durant have all been the ones advocating the largest for Bartelstein to be gone. And so I think if they do act like they know something, I think it would be Kevin Durant's camp that is leaning into that. Plus the report of they're going to work close with Rich Kleinman, his agent, with the trade for Kevin Durant.
I mean, that's kind of my thing is maybe, because I don't think Kevin Durant cares who the hell works for the Suns. He's about to be gone. I mean, why does he care if he's going to play for the Houston Rockets next season? Why does he care who the CEO of the Suns is? I mean, you know.
Well, I do think that'd be
kind of a weird way to make the decision. If I'm Matt Ishbia, the guy we're about to ship out,
well, that's true.
Wants this dude fired.
That's true. Is why would Ishbia care? But also, I do think Kevin Durant does hold a little bit of grudges on his way out and like to take some people out with him. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. The fact that they don't have an effing decision on these guys is crazy. It really feels like the Isaiah Thomas feeling out the process of him potentially becoming a part of the Phoenix Suns organization in some capacity. It almost is like they're feeling out, like, how would you guys feel if Bartelstein's role changed, or Bartelstein and James Jones both stay? So, like, how do you? I would ask you this: how do you not have a decision? Like, what are you waiting on? How are you going to put out a report that says there's going to be a wide net of candidates potentially for the head coaching role? Because, like, someone's got to interview those guys. Yeah. So why? How do you not have a decision made up?
I think part of it would probably be that what you and I talked about yesterday, which you were kind of pointing out, of like, the Athletic article tells us that Jones's contract technically ends at the end of June, But for all intents and purposes, like you're not going to, what is he going to run the draft if he's not going to be the GM? Of course not. So his contract ended today for all intents and purposes. So it's kind of like you don't necessarily need to come out and like announce it in the same way would probably be my thing, where Ishbia can be looking at replacements, canvassing the league, talking to people he knows around basketball to see who the next executive might be without having to announce it. Whereas Bud has 4 years left on his contract, and you got to tell the rest of the league, like, hey, we are, we're hiring. Like, come one, come all. It might just be semantic like that, where those types of executive things, it's not always the same, where it's like we're interviewing 8 people and this and that. It could, like with the Pelicans, for instance, right? Where they fired David Griffin today. They're hiring Joe Dumars. He worked for the league office. He runs basketball operations for the NBA in New York City, and they're just going right to hiring him. I think that's how this higher level stuff typically works. So that's probably my best guess as to why. Like, it'll just suddenly be some kind of report where it's like the Suns are looking at Bob Myers or something. You know what I mean?
I know the Pelicans were going to interview this guy, but holy crap, I didn't realize that they're going to hire this guy. Basically, they're going to have a deal by the end of the week. So maybe it is something like that.
I think with the top level guys, that's often,
Would I ask you this though, or can I ask you this, Brendon? It's just like, if you're not going to let him go, when is the right time to do so? Like, I guess I don't understand, because it is a mutual parting
fire
of
James
ways.
Jones?
Like, if you're not going to fire him, why don't you just extend him then?
Well, they would have.
That's my point. Is like, I agree with you that you don't have to announce that you're firing the guy, because you can't fire someone whose contract is up. It's going to be a let go. It won't be a firing process to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But like, how do you not have that clarity? What is James Jones done to deserve a contract extension? Like, just
I thought you were the Jones defender. I thought you were the.
I was the Jones defender until everything. I was the Jones defender for one thing and one thing only: the draft. I have changed radically 180 that I want everyone gone. Because
I know you've said that, but I just mean, like, I still think that there's a possibility here that somebody, like I said yesterday, could be hired above Jones. I think that that's like a version of this that,
like, the
could
one
easily
guy
happen.
What was that dude's name that the Suns hired years ago to be like the assistant GM? He was from the Pistons. Really long time ago. It was Jeff Bowers. Yeah. So we're going to have another Jeff Bowers role?
Jeff Bauer. He wasn't above Jones. He was an advisor guy. He worked below Jones. I'm talking about, like, the Pelicans, to just keep, because I'm thinking about them. David Griffin is their vice president of basketball operations. Their general manager is Trajan Langdon. So we don't have that in Phoenix, because Robert Sarver was a cheap you-know-what, and Ishbia is just kind of, basically, he is the president of basketball. I mean, Ishbia has been that here. But in a ideal world, you would invest more in the front office, and you would have that type of situation. I believe that the Heat are kind of like that. They have Riley, but they have a bunch of people who actually do the cap and the draft. And so I think it could be something like that, where Jones keeps his job, but Bob Myers or fill in the blank here, that guy is still, is kind of maybe the final say guy.
I know you're saying it because it's like the one name people know that run big front office basketball operations. But I just feel like we shouldn't even say that name, because there's no way that guy would come here. No. Bob Myers.
Oh, Bob Myers.
There's no shot that guy would.
I have no idea. He's just available.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying, but
I mean, for the most part, we're not going to know who the hell any of these people are. GM type candidates, like, we don't even know the names. Nobody knew who Nico Harrison was until all of a sudden he's running the Mavs. Now we all know his name.
That's 100% true.
He was.
I don't want to get too far. I don't want to get too far into general manager, and I know you don't want to either, potential hirings, because we don't know those guys. David Griffin, intriguing. Bob Myers, obviously very intriguing. At the end of the day, Brendon, do you think James Jones gets fired by the end of the week? Let go? Yes. Okay. If that's the case, then why did you just let him go today? That's my point. I don't understand it.
It's 11:30.
you're getting ripped. Like you are getting ripped on social media for all the things that have happened over the past couple of years. The Athletic article dropped.
If they do it tomorrow
James's
morning,
articles
no one's
dropped.
gonna care.
What?
If they fire James Jones Tuesday morning, it's not gonna matter that there were 24 hours. They just got to do it.
I think that you should take your lumps and then move the hell on instead of dragging it out. Like it's going to be.
What if? Okay, but that's why I keep bringing up the thing where maybe he stays on in a smaller role. That you're ignoring when I bring up why they could be doing it. That's why.
All right, I won't ignore it.
I don't know. I mean, it's not like I'm reporting that, but I'm just trying to answer your question.
That's fine. I get what you're saying, and I know that you're not necessarily advocating for this role, but if that's the case, that's stupid. Everyone, I just continue to beat the drum of everyone needs to be gone. The stench of this Suns season by proximity. I don't even
Here's
care
my
if
question.
you didn't do anything.
Can I close it out with this? Would you want to do that if you're James Jones? Flip it around. Would you after all the crap you've had to eat? Would you want to take a demotion and stay here?
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh
Why?
Yeah. What do you mean? Why? He gets to be the general manager of a team. He gets to collect a paycheck, and then he gets to sit.
He's young.
No one's hiring.
Built
this
a
guy.
championship contender. I don't think that's
I don't know. I don't know if we could go towards James Jones built a championship contender.
The team
Chris
that
Paul
he built made the finals in 2021.
He traded for the wrong Brooks at one point. We mistakenly got Kelly Oubre.
We can disagree about James Jones since Ishbia took over. James Jones ran the team when Robert Sarver was around. I don't know who you were giving credit to that for then, because they had 3 people in the whole freaking front office, and there were articles about how little investment there was in anybody in management because Robert Sarver wouldn't hire anybody. So if we're not giving credit to Jones, we know Sarver sucked. Then is it like the Jets? Is somebody playing NBA 2K? The Sun? McDonough.
Okay.
Get the hell out of here, Ryan McDonough. No.
I mean, listen.
You want to talk about people who never got hired again? Ryan McDonough doing a freaking podcast. Come on.
Okay, right now, if James Jones gets let go, is someone hiring him for a GM role?
Not immediately, but he's 40.
I rest my case.
He has a career in basketball. I could easily see him saying,
you want to hire,
I don't
why
need a
wouldn't you
demotion.
want to hire the young hotshot GM on the market?
He's not a hotshot.
That's my point. If he's not a hotshot, get the hell out of here.
I'm talking about his. Yeah, I don't. I'm saying the question I asked you is if you were him, what would you want to do? You're flipping it 100 ways around.
I answered it. I said yes.
And I'm saying no, and I'm just trying to explain why, because I think that he has if he waits an off season or two, he could stick as an assistant GM somewhere that might actually let him do his job and actually have a stable type of structure where he can try again. I wouldn't necessarily want to stay here and sign up for the madness of this organization, especially when I'm getting the disrespect of being told, we kind of like you, but not all the way. Anyway, we'll talk about this more tonight. Hit follow or subscribe if you have not already. There is our instant reaction to the dismissal of Mike Budenholzer. We'll catch you.
And who knows? Brendon or I might be next.